Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into the fascinating and honestly kind of terrifying neurobiology of short-form video consumption. We're going to break down exactly how endless swiping on platforms like TikTok, Reels, and Shorts is literally rewiring our brains. We're talking dopaminergic loops, cognitive decay, structural brain changes, the whole shebang. So let's get right into it.
Now, before we hit the hard science, let's just acknowledge that cultural feeling of brain rot. You know what I mean, right? If you've ever felt that weird, restless, fuzzy feeling in your head after an hour of mindless swiping, well, you're definitely not alone. Researchers actually call this kinetic attention. It's this highly dynamic, restless, task-switching behavior that pops up as our brains try to adapt to these high-velocity digital environments. It leads to what public health folks are now calling dopamine scrolling, just compulsively chasing novel content while completely bypassing our brain's executive control networks.
To really understand what's going on inside our heads, we first have to look at Section 1, the attention span collapse. This covers a staggering behavioral shift we've seen over the last 20 years. Looking at Dr. Gloria Mark's empirical data on our collapsing focus, the timeline is frankly shocking. Let's put this into perspective. Back in 2004, the average screen attention span was about 150 seconds. By 2012, that got cut in half to just 75 seconds. And today, in 2024, our average screen attention span has plummeted to a mere 47 seconds. Actually, the median is just 40. This isn't just us enjoying faster entertainment, this is a fundamental, massive shift in our actual attentional architecture.
To actually measure this, clinical researchers came up with something called the TikTok brain test. The setup is super simple. They just ask users to sit quietly and focus on a low-stimulation task for 5 minutes. No distractions. Well, a massive 68% of daily users outright fail. Within just 90 seconds, they experience intense urges to check their phones, often accompanied by actual physical restlessness. I mean, that points to a clinical-level attentional disruption. Their brains have basically been conditioned to reject internal quietude, treating a lack of rapid-fire stimulation like it's acute cognitive deprivation.
So, what's actually driving this intense dependency? Let's move on to Section 2, the dopaminergic compulsion loop, where we'll unpack the exact neurochemical algorithmic trap that's designed to keep you scrolling. The specific psychological mechanism at play here is known as a variable ratio schedule. The easiest way to think about it? It's basically a slot machine for your brain. By feeding you a string of mediocre content and then bam, unexpectedly hitting you with a highly resonant, amazing video, the algorithm maximizes what's called a reward prediction error. This triggers a massive, totally unpredictable surge of dopamine in your brain's core reward centers. And that unpredictability is exactly what makes the habit so incredibly hard to break.
And it's not just the unpredictability. The extreme compression of the content accelerates this whole cycle. Think about a traditional 10-minute video. That gives you one sustained narrative arc of anticipation and reward. But a single 10-minute scrolling session that bombards your brain with 10 to 40 distinct rapid-fire dopamine cycles. Literally every 15 to 60 seconds, you are going through an entire exhaustive loop of anticipation, reward consumption, and reset.
Now, to survive this absolute barrage of hyperstimulation, your brain has to try and maintain some kind of balance, or homeostasis. So it physically downregulates its own dopamine receptors and reduces baseline dopamine synthesis. And this is a huge deal. It leaves you in a state of chronic dopamine depletion. This is the literal, biological reason why everyday tasks suddenly feel overwhelmingly, painfully boring. It drives people to check their phones an average of 96 times a day, just to alleviate that psychological discomfort and feel quote-unquote normal again. Slower, offline tasks simply can't meet this new, artificially inflated dopaminergic threshold.
Okay, this is where things get even crazier, because this rapid dopamine cycling stops being just a behavioral habit and actually becomes structurally hardwired into your anatomy. Welcome to Section 3, Rewiring Your Brain Structure.
A landmark fMRI study out of Taiji Normal University found something pretty terrifying. They discovered actual physical neural bloating in highly addicted users. Your orbitofrontal cortex, which is involved in decision-making, literally swells up to prioritize immediate rewards, essentially destroying your capacity for delayed gratification. At the exact same time, your bilateral cerebellum physically beefs up to hyper-efficiently process all those rapid-fire visual stimuli. So your brain is structurally optimizing itself for the endless scroll, and it's doing this at the direct expense of your deep focus and self-control.
It gets worse with active usage too. Things like swiping, double tapping, and leaving comments overstimulate the connection between your brain's social emotional processor and its default resting state network. Because these neural pathways become hyper-connected, your brain essentially gets stuck in its own internal loop. The real-world consequence? Your alerting efficiency is completely destroyed. You literally become less capable of noticing and responding to things happening in the physical world around you. So, how exactly do all these physical brain alterations play out in our day-to-day lives? That brings us to Section 4, Cognitive Decay and Memory.
Recent EEG data really proves the invisible toll this takes on your prefrontal cortex, which is basically the brain's executive biological manager. To exert any kind of self-control, a healthy brain relies on specific brain waves called theta oscillations. But check this out. Heavy, short video consumers suffer significantly suppressed prefrontal theta power, and it's a direct correlation. The greater the compulsion to watch, the lower the theta power. It essentially paralyzes the brain's ability to summon the cognitive resources you need to resist impulses.
Because the infinite scroll is constantly overwriting our short-term working memory without ever giving us a pause, our brains are never afforded the cognitive quietude required to transfer information into the hippocampus for long-term storage. You're just getting information in fragmented, chaotic snippets. This doesn't just block long-term memory consolidation, it completely crashes your perspective memory. That's your executive ability to remember future intentions. This right here is exactly why heavy users systematically forget upcoming deadlines, chores, and daily responsibilities.
We're also seeing a really striking demographic vulnerability here. Structural equation modeling shows that this algorithmic conditioning is particularly devastating during our developmental years. Specifically, adolescent males exhibit exceptionally high vulnerability to the downstream effects. We're talking acute memory loss, depression, and severe subjective stress. It makes sense when you think about it. A developing teen brain's dopamine reward system is already mature and firing on all cylinders, but the prefrontal impulse control center, that's still under construction. It creates a profound and frankly dangerous developmental mismatch.
So, how in the world do we fix this? Let's turn to Section 5, Reclaiming Your Mind, where we look at how to use the exact same mechanism of neuroplasticity that caused the structural damage in the first place, but this time for clinical rehabilitation.
First off, clinicians actively warn against abrupt cold turkey digital detoxes. Honestly, those usually just cause severe anxiety and lead straight back to relapse. Instead, they recommend a digital taper. Step 1. Introduce structural friction. Literally log out of the platform after every single session, so you're forced to manually type in your password the next time. Step 2. Enable visual desaturation. Turn your phone's screen to grayscale to kill those hypersalient visual cues that trigger the dopamine spikes. And Step 3. You absolutely must practice attentional retraining.
If you're a parent or an educator, the data clearly shows that strict authoritarian device bans are way less effective than what researchers call contextual somatic nudges. Instead of just a rigid lockout, prompt the user to do a physical internal check-in. Ask them, hey, how does your brain actually feel right now? Does it feel energized or does it feel buzzy and tired? This kind of somatic nudge interrupts that automated zombie-like passive consumption. It actively re-engages the brain's prefrontal self-reflection networks, which helps cultivate a much-needed internal defense against that glassy-eyed TikTok stare.
The absolutely crucial takeaway here is this. You have to actively weight train your attention. By replacing passive, frictionless scrolling with effortful, long-form tasks, like sitting down to read a book, navigating complex narratives, or even just taking a walk without your phone, you can systematically restore your prefrontal theta power and repair those cognitive control networks. Which leaves us with the ultimate question. Now that you know exactly how the scroll rewires your brain, what will you choose to do with your next 10 minutes?